The first sound was not the wind. It was not the distant memory of church bells that once marked Christmas Eve in a world Elias Crane had left behind. It was the crack of pine splitting under the weight of snow, a sound like bone breaking in the cold. Elias sat alone in his cabin, 42 years old, and feeling every one of them in his joints. The fire burned low. He made no move to feed it. On the rough-hewn table before him sat a bottle of whiskey, half empty, and beside it a wooden box he had not opened in 3 years. Outside, the Montana winter of 1883 pressed against the walls like something alive and patient. The valley below had gone silent 50 weeks ago. No trappers came this high anymore. No riders, no voices calling through the trees. Just Elias in the wind and the weight of memory. He poured another measure of whiskey. The liquid caught the firelight, amber and burning. He did not drink it. His hands, scarred across the knuckles from a life of hard work and harder choices, trembled as he reached for the wooden box. The hinges creaked. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lay three things: a turquoise necklace, the stones dark with old blood; a letter sealed with military wax, addressed in handwriting he recognized from another life; and beneath both a small leather journal he could not bring himself to read. The necklace had belonged to a child, a Cheyenne girl, perhaps 6 years old, who had been holding her mother's hand when the cannons opened fire at Sand Creek. Elias closed his eyes. The whiskey sat untouched. In his mind, he could still hear the thunder of artillery, could still smell the black powder and the copper stench of blood on frozen ground, could still see Colonel Chivington's face flushed with righteous fury, screaming orders that no God would ever sanctify. Clear the camp, every last one. Elias had been 23 then, a patriot, a soldier, a fool who believed orders were the same as honor. He had pulled the lanyard on the howitzer. The recoil had knocked him back 2 steps. When the smoke cleared, the teepee he had aimed at was gone. In its place, a crater, and scattered around it pieces of lives that would never be whole again. The little girl with the turquoise necklace had been thrown 20 feet by the blast. Her mother lay across her arms, still wrapped tight as if love could stop shrapnel. Elias had picked up the necklace from the snow. He told himself he would find the girl's family, return it, make some kind of amends. But there was no family left. There was only snow turning red, and the weight of what he had done settling into his bones like winter cold that never leaves. That was 19 years ago, and Elias had been running from it ever since. He opened the letter now, though he had read it a dozen times without ever truly accepting its words. The handwriting was crisp, official, the kind that came from a desk in Washington where decisions about lives and deaths were made with clean hands. Private Elias Crane, you are hereby pardoned for desertion. Investigation confirms Colonel Chivington acted without authorization. Sand Creek has been deemed a massacre, not a military action. You are not responsible. Return to duty or receive honorable discharge. The date on the letter was December 1878. 5 years ago, 5 years he could have been free. 5 years he had chosen to stay in this cage of his own making because the letter was wrong. He was responsible. He had pulled that lanyard. He had killed that child. Forgiveness from the government meant nothing. He could not forgive himself. The whiskey finally made it to his lips. It burned going down, but it did not warm him. Nothing warmed him anymore except the thought that one day the cold would take him, and that would be justice enough. Then he heard the scream. It cut through the wind like a blade through silk, high, desperate, the sound of someone whose last hope was draining away into the snow. Elias was on his feet before conscious thought caught up with instinct. His hand found the rifle by the door. His other hand pulled his coat from its peg. The scream came again, closer now, and with it another sound. Laughter, male, cruel. He knew that sound. He had heard it at Sand Creek in the moments before the cannon spoke. The sound of men who believed themselves beyond consequence. Elias stepped into the storm. The snow was falling thick, each flake fat and heavy with the promise of burial. Visibility stretched perhaps 20 feet before the world became a wall of white. But Elias knew these woods. He had walked every trail, marked every tree, learned every hollow where the wind gathered its strength. He moved toward the sound rifle, ready, his breath coming out in plumes that the wind tore away. The scream had stopped. That was worse than the sound itself. Silence in the snow meant only 2 things, surrender or death. Then he saw the blood. It was a trail dark against the white leading up from the valley toward his cabin. The drops were fresh, still liquid, despite the cold. Someone had passed this way within the hour. Someone bleeding. Elias followed the trail with his eyes reading the story written in crimson. The stride was short, a woman or a child, the spacing irregular, someone stumbling, running, desperate. And there, 30 yards ahead, collapsed in a drift beneath a dead pine, he found them. A woman lay face down in the snow, one arm extended as if reaching for something just beyond her grasp. Her hair was black, spilling across the white like ink. Her clothes were thin, threadbare, soaked through with melted snow and dark with blood. Beside her, pressed against the tree trunk, sat a child. The girl was perhaps 8 years old, Chinese like the woman. Her face was the color of old parchment, her lips blue with cold. But her eyes were open, alert, watching Elias with an expression that was equal parts terror and desperate calculation. She held something clutched to her chest, a bundle wrapped in red cloth. Elias approached slowly, rifle lowered but ready. He had learned long ago that desperation made people dangerous. And this child, for all her small size, had the look of someone who would fight. "I will not hurt you," he said. His voice came out rough from disuse. He spoke so rarely these days that the words felt foreign on his tongue. The girl said nothing. Her knuckles were white where they gripped the bundle. Elias knelt beside the woman. He pressed 2 fingers to her throat as searching for a pulse. For a long moment he felt nothing. When Elias carefully turned her over, he saw her face for the first time. A thin scar ran along her left cheek, pale against her brown skin. Old, healed long ago, the kind of scar that told a story of its own. Then faint as a whisper he found it. Weak, irregular, but alive. He looked at the girl. "Your mother." The child's eyes widened. She shook her head violently. Then in halting English, colored with an accent he could not place, she whispered, "Ayi, auntie." Not mother, auntie. Elias filed that detail away. He turned his attention to the woman's injuries. There was blood on her hands soaked into the fabric of her sleeves. But when he carefully examined her body, he found no wounds. The blood was not hers. The woman's eyes flickered open. For a moment, they focused on Elias with sharp intelligence. Then they rolled back, and she went limp again. "She needs warmth," Elias said. "Food, medicine." The girl nodded, tears streaming down her frozen cheeks. Elias made a decision he knew he would regret. He always did when kindness entered the equation. Kindness had no place in his exile. But looking at this child, at the woman dying in the snow, he felt something stir in the calcified remains of his conscience. He bent and lifted the woman into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, as if starvation had hollowed her out from the inside. The girl scrambled to her feet, still clutching her bundle, and followed as Elias began the trek back to his cabin. The storm intensified. Snow drove sideways, stinging any exposed skin. Elias bent his head against the wind and walked. The woman's breath came in shallow gasps against his neck. The girl stumbled behind him, too proud or too frightened to ask for help. When the cabin finally emerged from the white, Elias felt the child's small hand grab the back of his coat. He pushed the door open with his shoulder and carried the woman inside. The fire had nearly died. Elias laid the woman on his bed, the only bed, and immediately set about building up the flames. The girl hovered nearby, watching his every move with eyes that missed nothing. Once the fire roared, Elias turned his attention to the woman. He pulled rough wool blankets over her, tucking them tight. He heated water in a battered pot and crushed dried herbs between his fingers, plants he had learned from a Crow woman years ago. The tea would help with shock, if nothing else. The girl had not moved. She stood by the bed, one hand resting on the woman's arm, the red bundle still pressed to her chest with the other. "What is your name?" Elias asked. The girl hesitated. Then so quietly he almost missed it. "Lily." "Lily," Elias repeated. He gestured to the woman. "And her, Mei Ling." "Mei Ling," Elias said. He offered the cup of tea to Lily. "Help her drink this." Slowly. Lily took the cup with both hands, finally setting down the mysterious bundle. She knelt beside the bed and carefully lifted Mei Ling's head, pressing the rim of the cup to the woman's cracked lips. Mei Ling's eyes opened again. This time they stayed open. She drank, coughed, drank again. Her gaze found Elias across the room and held it. He saw intelligence there, and pain, and something else. A kind of fierce determination that reminded him of cornered animals who would chew off their own leg to escape a trap. "Thank you," Mei Ling whispered. Her English was better than the girl's, each word carefully pronounced despite her weakness. Elias nodded. He did not ask questions. Not yet. Questions could wait until they were not all on the edge of freezing to death. He turned away to prepare food. Simple fare. Venison jerky softened in hot water. Dried berries. Hard bread. He worked in silence, aware of the girl watching him, aware of Mei Ling's eyes tracking his movements. When the food was ready, he brought it to them. Lily ate like a starving animal, barely chewing before swallowing. Mei Ling ate more slowly, each bite clearly painful. Elias sat by the fire and waited. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the only sounds were the crackle of burning wood and the quiet whisper of breath. Finally, Mei Ling spoke. Why did you help us? It was a good question. Elias considered it. He could say he was a good man, but that would be a lie. He could say it was Christian duty, but he had stopped believing in that God at Sand Creek. I heard you scream, he said at last. It was the truth if not all of it, and you came. Yes. Most men would not. Elias looked at her. Most men did not. Understanding passed between them. Mei Ling knew what it meant to be abandoned, to cry for help and receive only silence. We will leave in the morning, Mei Ling said. We have already imposed too much. You cannot travel in this storm. We have no choice. There is always a choice. Elias fed another log to the fire. You will stay until the weather clears. Then you can choose. Mei Ling studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded, too exhausted to argue further. Lily had curled up beside Mei Ling on the bed, her small body pressed close for warmth. Within minutes, the child was asleep. Elias took the first watch, as he always did. He sat in his chair by the fire rifle across his knees and watched the two strangers sleeping in his bed. He noticed Mei Ling's hands. They lay on top of the blanket, and in the firelight, he could see they were stained dark red. Not injured, stained, as if she had plunged them into something wet and crimson and held them there until the color seeped into her skin. He noticed the bundle Lily had been clutching. It sat now on the floor beside the bed, partially unwrapped. Inside, he could see the corner of a leather journal and what looked like a photograph. And he noticed something else. The way Lily had called Mei Ling auntie instead of mother. The way Mei Ling watched the girl with a kind of desperate protectiveness that went beyond normal care. These were not mother and daughter, but they were bound together by something stronger than blood. Elias did not sleep that night. As dawn approached gray and cold, he heard Mei Ling whisper something in Cantonese. A prayer, perhaps, or a confession. He did not speak the language, but he recognized the tone. It was the same tone he used when he talked to ghosts. The second day brought no relief from the storm. If anything, the snow fell harder, piling in drifts against the cabin walls. Elias woke from a brief doze to find Lily standing at the window, her breath fogging the glass. Will it ever stop? She asked. Eventually, Elias said. Everything stops eventually. She turned to look at him. Are you a good man? The question, so direct from a child's mouth, struck him harder than any blow. No, he said, I am not. Then why did you save us? Because bad men can still do good things, sometimes. Lily considered this. Then she nodded as if he had passed some test she had set for him. Mei Ling was awake now, propped up against the wall. The color had returned to her face, but she still moved carefully as if her body were a fragile thing that might break. We need to talk, Elias said to her. Mei Ling glanced at Lily. Outside. They stepped onto the small porch, leaving the girl inside. The cold hit like a fist, but both of them ignored it. Elias had learned to live with cold. Mei Ling, he suspected, had learned to live with far worse. There is blood on your hands, Elias said. No preamble, no softness. It is not yours. Whose is it? Mei Ling looked down at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. A man named Henry Chen. Is he dead? Yes. Did you kill him? Mei Ling met his eyes. I did not mean to, but yes. The honesty surprised him. Most people lied when their life depended on it. Mei Ling stood in the freezing cold and admitted to murder. Tell me what happened, Elias said. So she did. Henry Chen had been a railroad foreman, one of the few Chinese men to rise to that position. He had married a white woman, learned to speak English without an accent, dressed in American clothes, and attended American churches. He had tried to erase every trace of his origins. When his wife died, giving birth to their daughter, her family had been horrified. The child was half Chinese, tainted. They wanted nothing to do with her. For 8 years, Henry had raised Lily alone with Mei Ling's help. Mei Ling had been his housekeeper, his cook, the closest thing to family the girl had known. But 3 weeks ago, Henry had made a decision. He would send Lily east to his late wife's family. He would tell them the girl's mother had been French, not Chinese. He would forge documents, change her name, give her a chance at a real life, a white life. Mei Ling had confronted him. You cannot erase who she is. I can give her a future, Henry had said, something we will never have. They had argued. The argument had grown heated. And when Henry reached for papers that would erase Lily's identity forever, Mei Ling had tried to stop him. Henry grabbed her, not her arm, her throat. He was stronger, desperate. He threw her against the wall. You will not ruin this, he hissed. I am giving her a chance, and you will not take it from her. Mei Ling could not breathe, could not think. Her hand found something on the table, a letter opener. She did not plan, did not think. She drove it into his side. Henry staggered back, looked down at the blade, then at her, surprise in his eyes, then nothing. He fell. Mei Ling had dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her hands against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. But it was too late. Henry's eyes had gone distant, then empty. When she pulled her hands away, they were red. I did not mean to kill him, Mei Ling said again, but I cannot say I regret it. He was going to take Lily away, make her into something she is not. Elias was silent for a long moment. He understood the logic. He did not agree with it, but he understood. There will be people looking for you, he said. Yes. They will think you murdered him for money or revenge. Yes. Why did you run? Because no one would believe the truth. Mei Ling's voice was steady, but her hands shook. I am Chinese. He was a foreman. The law does not care about context when the victim is white and the killer is not. She was right. Elias knew she was right. He had seen enough frontier justice to know that truth mattered far less than appearance. You should go, he said. When the storm breaks, head north to Canada. They might not follow you there. And Lily, take her with you. Mei Ling shook her head. I cannot give her the life she deserves. I can barely keep her fed. But I will not let them turn her into a white girl who is ashamed of her mother's blood. So you will run forever, if I must. They stood in the cold, staring at a world that offered no forgiveness. Inside, Lily was humming a song, soft and sweet, the melody winding through the cabin like smoke. Elias recognized the tune. His own mother had sung it to him once in a life so distant, it felt like someone else's memory. He made a decision then, another one he would regret. But regret was familiar. He wore it like a second skin. You will stay, he said, until the spring thaw at least. By then maybe the search will have moved on. Why would you risk this? Mei Ling asked. You do not know us. No, Elias agreed, but I know what it is to carry blood on your hands, and I know what it is to run from something you cannot outpace. He turned to go back inside. Mei Ling caught his arm. Thank you, she said. Elias shook his head. Do not thank me yet. You do not know what I am. But even as he said it, he wondered if she saw more clearly than he gave her credit for. If she recognized in him the same brokenness she carried in herself. They went back inside. The day passed slowly. Elias taught Lily how to tie knots. Mei Ling mended a tear in her dress with thread Elias provided. They moved around each other carefully, three strangers learning the rhythm of shared space. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Elias sat by the fire and opened the red bundle. Inside was a journal written in Chinese characters he could not read. A photograph of Henry Chen holding a baby, his face caught between pride and sorrow. And at the bottom, wrapped in silk, a knife. The blade was 6 inches long. The handle was carved bone, and along the edge, dark stains that could only be blood. Elias held the knife up to the firelight. This was the weapon. This was what had ended Henry Chen's life. He looked at Mei Ling. She was awake watching him. There is more to this story, Elias said quietly, holding up the knife. Is there not? Mei Ling did not flinch. Yes. What are you not telling me? She looked at the knife in his hands, the dried blood along its edge. Then she met his eyes. Everything. The word hung in the air like a confession. Then tell me no bowing, Elias said. All of it. No more holding back. She was right. God help him, she was right. He would help them anyway. Because he understood what it meant to carry an unforgivable choice. Tell me the real story, Elias said. So Mei Ling told him. Henry Chen had not just been taking Lily away. He had been preparing to testify against Mei Ling in a court case. 6 months earlier, Mei Ling's husband had died in a railroad accident. An explosion in a tunnel, they said. 10 Chinese workers buried alive. Mei Ling had evidence that the explosion was not an accident, that Henry Chen, under pressure from his white supervisors, had cut costs on the blasting powder, had used inferior materials that he knew were unstable. Mei Ling had been gathering documents, witness statements, proof that her husband and 9 others had been murdered by negligence. Henry had discovered what she was doing. He had confronted her, threatened her, and when she refused to stop, he had tried to take Lily as leverage. Give up this crusade or lose the child. That was when Mei Ling had picked up the knife. I did not go there to kill him, she said. I went to take Lily and run, but he would not let us leave. He grabbed her, held her by the arms so tight she cried out. And she stopped, her hands clenched into fists. I saw my husband's face. I saw all those men buried in the dark because someone valued profit over lives. I saw Lily's future erased and remade into something convenient for white comfort, and I could not let it happen. So you killed him. So I killed him. Elias set the knife down, and Lily saw this. Yes. Does she understand what happened? She knows I hurt her father. She knows he will not wake up. She is 8 years old. She understands more than we wish she did. And the blood on your hands. You did not try to save him. No, Mei Ling said. I did not. This was the truth. Raw, unforgivable. She had not killed in self-defense alone. She had killed in rage and sorrow and the desperate mathematics of a world that gave her no other options. Elias should have thrown her out, should have sent her into the snow to face whatever justice was coming. But he looked at her and saw something he recognized. He saw himself at Sand Creek pulling that lanyard. Not an accident, a choice. I cannot absolve you, Elias said. I do not ask for absolution. Then what do you want? Time. Enough time for Lily to understand that her father was not a monster. That I am not a monster. That we are all just people trying to survive in a world that wants us broken. Elias looked at the sleeping child. Lily's face was peaceful in slumber, unburdened by the knowledge of what she had witnessed. She will carry this forever, he said. I know. It will shape her. I know. She may hate you for it. I know. Mei Ling's voice cracked. But at least she will be alive to hate me. At least she will know who she is. The fire popped. Sparks drifted up toward the ceiling. Elias made his choice. You will stay, he said, but you will tell me everything. No more lies. No more half-truths. If I am risking my neck for you, I need to know exactly what I am risking it for. Agreed. They shook hands. Her grip was firm despite her small stature. One more thing, Elias said. If men come looking for you, I will not die for you. I will give you warning and a chance to run. But I will not stand between you and a mob. I understand. Do you, Bayum? Mei Ling smiled. It was a sad expression ancient beyond her years. You are a good man pretending to be bad. I am a bad woman pretending to be good. We are both liars, but yes, I understand. Elias returned to his chair. He did not sleep. He watched the door and the window, and the two people who had stumbled into his exile and shattered his carefully constructed isolation. Outside in the town of Silver Pine, 30 miles down the mountain, a man named Dutch Carver stared at a wanted poster tacked to the general store wall. The drawing was crude, but recognizable enough for someone who had seen her. $500. Dutch Carver smiled. He knew these mountains. He knew every cabin, every trail, every place someone might hide. And he knew Elias Crane. They had served together at Sand Creek. Dutch had pulled a trigger that day. Elias had fired a cannon. Both men had killed, but only one had run away. Dutch folded the poster and tucked it into his coat. Then he walked to the saloon, bought a bottle of whiskey, and began recruiting men who would not ask too many questions. By morning, he would have his posse. By the end of the week, he would have his bounty. And he would have his revenge on the man who had abandoned his brothers in arms. The storm continued for 3 more days. During that time, Lily began to trust Elias enough to speak freely. She told him about her father, about the railroad, about the day Mei Ling had taken her hand and said, "We are leaving. We cannot come back." "Were you scared?" Elias asked. "Yes," Lily said, "but more scared of staying." "Why, Boam?" "Because Papa's friends came to the house. They said bad things about Auntie May. They said she would be arrested, that I would be sent away, that I would never see her again. And you did not want that." "No, Auntie May is all I have." Elias understood. He had lost everyone, too. The difference was that Lily had someone left to fight for. On the 4th morning, the storm finally broke. The sun emerged pale and distant, casting long shadows across the fresh snow. Elias stepped outside to check the animal traps. The world was silent. Perfect. Unmarked except for the tracks of deer and rabbits. Then he saw them. Boot prints. Human. Coming from the direction of the lower trail. Someone had been here. Recently. While they slept. Elias followed the tracks. They circled the cabin at a distance, never coming close enough to be seen from the windows. Then they returned the way they had come. Someone scouting, someone who knew they were here. Elias returned to the cabin. Mei Ling was awake, feeding the fire. "We have been found," Elias said. Mei Ling's face went pale. "How long do we have?" "Days. Maybe a week if the weather turns again. We should run. Into winter with a child, you would not make it 10 miles. Then what do you suggest?" Elias went to the wall and took down a second rifle. He checked the action, found it smooth. He handed it to Mei Ling. "Do you know how to shoot?" "No." "Then you will learn." He took Lily outside and showed her how to set snares. How to read the sky for coming weather. How to move through snow without leaving tracks that could be followed. The girl absorbed everything like a sponge. She was quick, clever. She would need to be. That night, as they sat around the fire, Lily asked the question that had been hanging in the air since they arrived. Will you marry Auntie May? Elias choked on his coffee. Mei Ling's eyes went wide. What? Elias managed. If you marry her, she would be safe. They could not take her away. The law protects wives. Child, Mei Ling said gently, it does not work that way. Why not? Because Mei Ling trailed off, unable to find words that would make sense to an 8-year-old. Elias supplied them. Because I am white and she is Chinese. The law forbids such marriages in most territories. That is stupid, Lily said. Yes, Elias agreed. It is. They sat in the uncomfortable silence. Then Mei Ling began to hum, the same lullaby she had sung before, soft and sudden, achingly beautiful. Elias closed his eyes and listened. He had not heard music in so long, had not allowed himself beauty of any kind, believing he had forfeited the right to it. But the song reached something deep inside him, some part that remembered being human before he became a killer. When Mei Ling finished, she looked at him. My mother sang that to me, in Guangdong before I came here, before everything changed. It is beautiful, Elias said. It is about leaving home, about crossing water you cannot cross back, about becoming something you do not recognize in the mirror. I know that feeling. Yes, Mei Ling said. I think you do. The next morning, a trapper arrived at the cabin. His name was Old Tom, and he came once a month to trade supplies. Elias usually looked forward to the visit. It was his only contact with the outside world. But today, Tom's face was grim. You have got trouble coming, Crane. I know. Do you know it is Dutch Carver leading them? Elias went very still. Dutch. Aye, got himself 5 men from town. They are asking about a Chinese woman and a child, offering money for information. What did you tell them? Nothing, but others will talk. You know how it is when there is a reward. Elias nodded. How long? Day or 2, maybe less. Thank you, Tom. The old trapper looked at Mei Ling and Lily, then back at Elias. She worth dying for. I hope I do not have to find out. After Tom left, Elias told Mei Ling everything about Dutch, about Sand Creek, about the fact that the man coming for them was not just a bounty hunter, but someone with a personal grudge. He will not just arrest me, Mei Ling said. He will hurt me to hurt you. Yes. Then we fight. You do not know how to shoot a rifle. Then teach me faster. They spent the day practicing. Mei Ling was a poor shot, but she was determined. By evening, she could hit a tree trunk at 20 paces, not good enough, but better than nothing. Lily watched it all with solemn eyes, too young to fully understand, old enough to know something terrible was coming. That night, Elias could not sleep. He sat in his chair, rifle across his knees, and watched the darkness beyond the window. At some point, Mei Ling came to sit beside him. You could still send us away, she said. Face Dutch yourself. Tell him we were here, but you did not know who we were. He would not believe me. Maybe not, but you would live. Living is not the same as being alive. Mei Ling reached out slowly as if approaching a wild animal and took his hand. Her fingers were small and cold. His were large and scarred. They fit together awkwardly. I am sorry, she whispered, for bringing this to you, for asking you to carry our weight. I have been carrying weight for 19 years, Elias said. What is a little more? They sat like that until dawn. They had finally stopped running and chosen to make a stand. When the sun rose, Elias saw smoke on the horizon, campfires, multiple. Dutch Carver was coming, and with him judgment. 2 weeks passed before Dutch Carver made his move. 2 weeks of waiting, 2 weeks of silence, broken only by the wind and the occasional crack of ice in the trees. 2 weeks during which Elias Crane learned what it meant to live with other people again. The routine established itself slowly like ice forming over still water. Elias woke before dawn to check the trap lines. Mei Ling prepared what little food they had, stretching supplies that were meant for one person across 3. Lily followed Elias through the snow, learning to read tracks to move quietly to survive. At night, they gathered by the fire. Sometimes Mei Ling hummed her lullabies. Sometimes Lily told stories about her father, her voice small and sad. Sometimes they all sat in silence, 3 people bound together by circumstance and the knowledge that danger waited just beyond the tree line. But it was not peace, it was the eye of a storm. Elias knew Dutch Carver, had served with him for 2 years before Sand Creek. Dutch was methodical, patient. He would not rush in with guns blazing. He would wait, watch, let fear do half the work for him. And he was doing it exactly that. On the 3rd day, Elias found a dead deer near the cabin, fresh killed. Gutted, left to rot. A message. I can reach you anytime I want. On the seventh day, he discovered his trap line had been cut. Every snare destroyed, every deadfall sprung. Another message. I can starve you out. On the 10th day, Mei Ling went to fetch water from the spring and found a wanted poster nailed to a tree. Her own face poorly drawn but recognizable, and beneath it in fresh charcoal, two words. Soon Crane. Elias burned the poster. But the ashes did not erase the truth. Dutch was playing with them, building anticipation, making them afraid. It was working. Mei Ling grew quieter each day. She jumped at sounds. Her hands shook when she tried to sew or cook. The weight of being hunted was crushing her slowly like snow accumulating on weak branches. Lily sensed it. Children always did. She stayed close to Mei Ling, holding her hand, singing softly in Cantonese, trying to be brave for the woman who had saved her. Elias watched them and felt something crack inside his chest. Something he had thought frozen solid years ago. He cared about them, not as abstractions, not as penance for his sins, but as actual people whose pain mattered to him. It terrified him. On the 11th night after Lily had fallen asleep, Mei Ling came to Elias where he sat cleaning his rifle. Tell me about Sand Creek, she said. Elias looked up surprised. Why, Basim? Because you carry it the way I carry Henry's death. And I think we should know each other's ghosts. It will not make you feel better. I do not want to feel better. I want to understand. Elias set down the rifle. For a long moment he said nothing. Then slowly he began to speak. He told her about the march to Sand Creek, how they had been told the Cheyenne camp was full of warriors who had been raiding settlements, how Colonel Chivington had promised them glory and safety for the territory. He told her about this morning of the attack, how the sun had risen red over the plains, how he had seen children playing near the creek and women hanging clothes to dry and old men sitting in circles smoking pipes. No warriors, just people living their lives. But the order came anyway. Open fire. I pulled the lanyard, Elias said. His voice was flat, emotionless, the only way he could speak of it without breaking. The cannon bucked. The shell hit a teepee. When the smoke cleared, there were pieces everywhere, pieces of lives. He stopped, breathed, continued. Afterward, I walked through the camp. There was a woman. She had thrown herself over her child, trying to protect her. But you cannot protect anyone from a howitzer. His hand went to his pocket where he carried the turquoise necklace always. The little girl was wearing this. I took it, told myself I would find her family, make it right somehow. But there was no family left. We killed them all. Mei Ling listened without speaking. When he finished, she reached out and took his hand. You were following orders, she said. That is no excuse. No, but it is an explanation. Is there a difference? Yes, one means you cannot change. The other means you have already changed. Elias looked at her. In the firelight, her face was soft, understanding. She was not absolving him, but she was not condemning him either. I ran away, Elias said. After Sand Creek, when the truth came out, they started investigations. Some men stood trial. I could have testified, could have told the truth. But I ran. Why, because I was a coward, because I thought if I hid here, if I punished myself enough, it would balance the scales somehow. Mei Ling shook her head. Scales do not balance, not in this world. We do not get to undo our sins. We only get to choose what we do next. And what have you chosen? To protect Lily, no matter the cost, even if it means more blood. Even then. They sat in the darkness holding hands like children afraid of the dark. Then Mei Ling asked the question that had been hovering between them since the beginning. The letter, the one from the army. Why did you not open it for 5 years? Elias flinched. You saw that. I see many things. I knew what it would say. How dumb, because the government needed scapegoats. And dead colonels make better scapegoats than living privates. You knew they would pardon you. I suspected. And you did not want to be pardoned. No. Mei Ling was quiet for a long moment. Then she said very gently, You think you deserve to suffer? Yes. You are wrong. You do not know what I did. I know exactly what you did. You killed children. I killed a man who tried to erase his own child's identity. We are both covered in blood, but suffering does not wash it away. It just makes us cruel. Elias pulled his hand back. You do not understand. I understand perfectly. You want punishment because punishment feels like justice. But it is not. It is just more pain added to pain. Then what would you have me do? Mei Ling looked toward the bed where Lily slept. Live. Protect those who need protecting. Be better than the man who pulled that trigger. I do not know how. Neither do I, but we learn together, or we die together. Those are the only choices left. Elias felt something shift inside him, a pressure he had carried for 19 years loosening just slightly. Not gone, never gone, but bearable. Together, he repeated, together. The word hung between them like a promise neither of them knew if they could keep. The 12th day brought the first real attack. Elias was checking the perimeter when he heard the shot, a single rifle crack that echoed across the valley. The bullet hit a tree 6 inches from his head, showering him with splinters. He dove behind cover, pulling his rifle around, scanning the tree line, looking for the shooter. Nothing moved, just snow and shadows and the whisper of wind through pine. Then he saw it, a flash of metal on the ridge, someone watching through a scope. Elias did not return fire. That was what Dutch wanted, to draw him out, to make him waste ammunition, to start a fight he could not win. Instead, Elias retreated to the cabin, fast but not panicked, making himself a difficult target. He burst through the door. Mei Ling was already holding the rifle he had given her, her face pale but determined. Lily crouched behind the heavy table they had overturned for cover. "They are here," Elias said. "How many?" Mei Ling asked. "I only saw one, but there will be more." He moved to the window, staying low, peered out through a gap in the shutters. The ridge was empty now. Whoever had fired was gone. They waited. Minutes stretched into hours. No more shots came, no voices, no movement. Finally, as dusk approached, Elias saw a figure emerge from the trees, tall, broad-shouldered, walking with the confidence of a man who knew he controlled the situation. Dutch Carver. He stopped 50 yards from the cabin, close enough to be seen clearly, far enough to be safe from return fire. "Crane," he called out, his voice carried easily across the snow. "We need to talk." Elias did not answer. "I know you are in there. I know you have the woman and the girl, and I know you are not stupid enough to think you can hide forever." Still silence. Dutch smiled. Even at this distance, Elias could see it. That familiar, cruel expression he had worn at Sand Creek when the killing was done and the counting of scalps began. "I am giving you a chance, old friend. Send them out. I will take them peaceable. You walk away. No harm, no questions." "Do not answer him," Mei Ling whispered. "I am not going to." Dutch waited. When no response came, his smile faded. "You always were stubborn. Remember what that got you at Sand Creek? You questioned orders, made yourself a problem. And where did that lead?" He let the question hang. "I will give you until morning to think it over. After that, things get unpleasant. And Crane, I brought enough men to burn you out, enough to wait you out, enough to make sure you all die if that is what it takes." Dutch turned and walked back into the trees, unhurried, unthreatened. When he was gone, Lily began to cry, quiet hitching sobs that she tried to muffle against Mei Ling's shoulder. Elias felt rage building in his chest. Not the hot, impulsive kind, the cold, calculating kind that had gotten him through 2 years of war. "We cannot stay here," he said. "Where would we go?" Mei Ling asked. "North, through the high pass. It is dangerous in winter, but possible. And if we get caught in a storm, then we die clean instead of burning." Mei Ling nodded. "When do we leave?" "Tonight, in the dark. They will expect us to wait for morning." They spent the remaining daylight preparing. Elias packed supplies, food, blankets, ammunition, everything they could carry. Mei Ling dressed Lily in layers, wrapping her until the girl looked like a small, round bundle. As night fell, Elias made one final check of the cabin. This place had been his prison for 5 years. His penance, his hiding place. Now he was leaving it, maybe forever. He picked up the wooden box from the table, the turquoise necklace, the letter of pardon, the journal he had never been able to read. For a moment, he considered leaving it all behind, starting fresh. But he could not. These things were part of him. Heavy as they were, he needed to carry them. He tucked the box into his pack. "Ready?" he asked. Mei Ling and Lily stood by the door, ready as they would ever be. Elias opened the door slowly. The night was clear, cold. The moon hung low and full, turning the snow to silver. Too much light. They would be visible for miles. But there was no choice. They stepped out into the night and began to walk. Behind them, unseen in the darkness, Dutch Carver watched from his camp. He saw them leave, saw the direction they headed, and he smiled. Let them run. Let them think they had a chance. The hunt was always better when the prey fought back. They had been walking for 3 hours when Lily collapsed. One moment she was trudging through the snow, her small hand clutching Mei Ling's coat. The next, her legs simply folded beneath her. Mei Ling caught her before she hit the ground. Lily, Lily, look at me. The girl's eyes were half closed. Her skin burned with fever even in the freezing night. Elias knelt beside them. He pressed his hand to Lily's forehead and cursed. The child was burning up. How long has she been sick? He demanded. I do not know. She said nothing. She was trying to be brave. Brave gets you killed out here. Elias scooped Lily into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her breath came in shallow gasps. We need to find shelter, Mei Ling said. The nearest shelter is 4 hours back. The cabin. We cannot go back. Then we keep moving and she dies. The words were harsh, but true. Elias could see it in the way Lily's chest struggled for air, in the gray pallor beneath her brown skin. This was not a simple chill. This was pneumonia or worse. There is a hunter's shack, Elias said, 2 miles east. If it is still standing, we can shelter there. Build a fire, try to bring the fever down. And Dutch, we deal with him if we live long enough to have the chance. They changed direction. Elias carried Lily cradled against his chest, trying to shield her from the wind. Mei Ling followed, her rifle held ready, her eyes scanning the darkness. The miles stretched forever. Every step was a battle. The snow was deep, the cold cut like knives, and Lily's breathing grew weaker with each passing minute. Finally, they saw it. The shack was little more than 4 walls and a roof half collapsed on one side, but it was shelter. Elias kicked the door open. Inside, the space was small and dark and filled with animal droppings, but it was out of the wind. He laid Lily on the ground and immediately began building a fire. His hands moved automatically, stacking tinder, striking flint. Within minutes, flames crackled to life. Mei Ling stripped off Lily's wet outer layers and wrapped her in every dry blanket they had. She melted snow in a tin cup and held it to the girl's cracked lips. Drink, she whispered. Please, baby, drink. Lily's eyes flickered open. She drank a little. Then her head lolled to the side. Elias examined her as best he could in the firelight. Her breathing was labored, rattling. Her fever showed no signs of breaking. She needs medicine, he said. Real medicine, not herbs and hope. Where do we get medicine out here? Silver Pine, the town, they have a doctor. We cannot go to town. Dutch's men are everywhere. Then she dies. Mei Ling's face crumpled. She buried it in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Elias stood. He checked his rifle, counted his remaining bullets. 12 rounds. Not enough for a war, but enough for what he had to do. I'm going to town, he said. Mei Ling looked up, tears streaming down her face. They will kill you. Maybe, but if I do nothing, Lily dies for certain. This way there is a chance. Elias. It was the first time she had used his name. It stopped him in his tracks. You do not have to do this, Mei Ling said. We are not your responsibility. Yes, Elias said quietly, you are. He did not wait for her response. He walked out into the night, leaving Mei Ling alone with the dying child, and began the long trek down the mountain towards Silver Pine. The town was dark when Elias arrived. Most of the buildings were shuttered against the cold. Only the saloon showed light, and even that was dim. Elias moved through the shadows like a ghost. He had not been to Silver Pine in 3 years, had avoided it deliberately. Too many people, too many questions. But he knew the layout, knew where the doctor lived. A small house on the east edge of town marked by a painted sign that swung gently in the breeze. Elias approached carefully, checked for watchers, saw none. He knocked on the door, quiet but insistent. A minute passed, then another. Then the door cracked open and a bleary-eyed man peered out. Dr. Sullivan was 50 years old with gray hair and the permanent look of exhaustion that came from serving a frontier town. He blinked at Elias in confusion. Do I know you? No, but I need medicine for a child, pneumonia. Sullivan's expression sharpened. Bring the child here. I will examine her. I cannot. She is 2 miles up the mountain. Then I will come with you. No, just give me the medicine and tell me what to do. Sullivan studied Elias, taking in the rifle. The desperate look in his eyes. The tension that spoke of a man on the edge. You are in trouble, Sullivan said. Yes. Legal trouble. The complicated kind. Sullivan sighed. He opened the door wider. Come in, quickly. Elias stepped inside. The house was warm and smelled of antiseptic and tobacco. Sullivan moved to a cabinet and began pulling out bottles and packets. Willow bark tea for the fever, honey and lemon for the cough. If there is fluid in the lungs, you need to keep her upright. Help her breathe. He packed everything into a small bag and handed it to Elias. How much? Elias asked, reaching for the few coins he had. Sullivan waved him off. No charge, but listen to me carefully. If that child does not improve in 2 days, you need to bring her here. I do not care what trouble you are in. A child's life is worth more than your secrets. Elias nodded. Thank you. He turned to leave. Sullivan caught his arm. There are men asking about a Chinese woman, a bounty hunter named Carver and his crew. They are staying at the saloon, drinking and waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to talk, for information. They are offering good money. Has anyone talked? Not yet, but money loosens tongues. You should know that whoever you are protecting, she does not have much time. Elias nodded again. He left the house and slipped back into the shadows. He was halfway to the edge of town when he heard voices. Check the doctor's place. Crane might try for medicine. Elias froze. He recognized that voice. Dutch. Footsteps crunched in the snow, coming closer. Elias pressed himself against the side of a building, hard hammering, rifle ready. Two men walked past, not Dutch himself, but two of his hired guns. They headed toward Sullivan's house, talking in low voices. Elias waited until they passed. Then he moved, fast and quiet. He almost made it. Hey, you there! One of the men had turned, seen him. Elias ran. Shots cracked behind him. Bullets whined past, kicking up snow. He ducked behind a building, changed direction, kept moving. More shouts. The whole town was waking up. Elias burst from between two buildings and nearly ran straight into a third man. This one was faster. He grabbed Elias by the coat, trying to bring a pistol to bear. They struggled. The gun discharged, the shot going wild. Elias slammed his forehead into the man's nose. Felt cartilage crunch. The man staggered back. Elias did not think, did not hesitate. He pulled his rifle around and fired. The shot took the man in the chest. He fell backward into the snow, blood spreading dark beneath him. Elias stared at the body, the first person he had killed since Sand Creek. 19 years of abstinence broken in a single moment. His hands shook. His breath came in ragged gasps. Then more shots, more shouts. Elias ran again. This time he did not stop until the town was far behind him and he was alone in the dark forest with only his guilt for company. He leaned against a tree, gasping for air. Blood from the fight stained his knuckles. The weight of what he had just done pressed down on him like the Montana winter. He had killed again. The thought repeated itself, cold and relentless. After 19 years, after all his penance, he had put a bullet in a man's chest and watched him fall into the snow. Elias closed his eyes, tried to steady his breathing, failed. When he opened them again, he saw her. Lily. The girl stood 20 feet away, half hidden behind a pine tree. Her eyes were huge in her pale face. She had followed him, seen everything. Lily. Elias said, his voice hoarse. You should not be here. She did not move, did not speak. Go back to the shack, to Mei Ling. Still nothing. Elias took a step toward her. She flinched but did not run. I am sorry you saw that, he said quietly. I did not want to kill him, but he would have killed me. And then you and Mei Ling would have no one. Lily's voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. Like Papa. Elias froze. What? You killed him like I killed Papa. The words struck him like a physical blow. Lily, you did not kill your father. Mei Ling told me what happened. She lied. Lily's voice was flat, empty. To protect me. But I remember. Remember what? The girl looked down at her hands, small, delicate, the hands of a child. Papa was going to send me away, make me white, make me forget Mama, forget who I am. Her voice cracked. Auntie May tried to stop him. He hit her, knocked her down. Tears streamed down Lily's face now, but her voice remained steady. The knife was on the table, the letter opener. I picked it up. I did not think. I could not let him hurt her anymore. Lily. I stabbed him in the sui. He looked at me so surprised, like he did not know me anymore. Then he fell. The girl's knees gave out. She sank into the snow, her small body shaking with silent sobs. Auntie May pulled the knife out, got his blood on her hands. She told me to run, to hide. She said she would tell everyone it was her, that I was just a child, that she would protect me. Elias moved to her, knelt beside her in the snow. His wounded leg screamed in protest, but he ignored it. Does Mei Ling know you remember? He asked gently. No, I pretended to forget, because if I remember then, she died for nothing. Lily looked up at him, her eyes ancient in her young face. She was going to die for me, to keep me safe. And I will not let that happen. But you killed someone too, just now, for us. Yes. Does it hurt after? Elias thought of the man lying dead in the snow behind them. Thought of the Cheyenne girl with the turquoise necklace. Thought of all the weight he had carried for 19 years. Yes, he said, It hurts, always, but sometimes the hurt is worth it. To protect someone, to protect someone you love. The word hung between them. Love. Neither of them had said it before, but it was true. Lily threw her arms around Elias's neck, held on like she was drowning. I am scared, she whispered into his shoulder. So am I. But you still fight. Because you and Mei Ling are worth fighting for. They stayed like that for a long moment, a killer and a child, both carrying blood on their hands, both trying to be brave. Finally, Elias pulled back. We need to go, before Dutch's men find us. Will you tell Auntie May about what I said? Elias considered, then shook his head. That is your choice. When you are ready, if you are ever ready. Thank you. But Lily, listen to me carefully. Elias cupped her face in his scarred hands. What happened to your father? That was not murder. You were protecting someone you love. You were 8 years old and you did what you thought you had to do. Like you. Like me. Does that make it right? No, but it makes it human. And being human means carrying things that hurt. The question is what we do with that hurt. What do you do with it? Elias thought of the cabin waiting in the dark. Of Mei Ling, who had taken a child's sin onto herself without hesitation. Of the choice he had made to stand and fight instead of running. I try to build something better, he said. Something worth the price. Lily nodded slowly, understanding beyond her years. Together they began the long walk back through the forest. Behind them, the town woke to the news of another death. Ahead in a broken shack, Mei Ling waited with a dying fever and fear in her heart. But between them, Elias and Lily carried a secret, a shared weight, and somehow that made it lighter. He returned to the shack as dawn broke, but he did not go directly inside. Instead, he turned east, toward the valley where he knew Chinese miners worked the old claims, men who had been abandoned by the railroad companies after the tracks were finished, men who understood what it meant to be hunted. The trek took him 2 hours through deep snow. His wounded legs screamed with every step, but he pushed through the pain. He had no choice. The mining camp emerged from the pre-dawn darkness, a cluster of rough tents and sluice boxes carved into the frozen hillside. Smoke rose from a central fire pit. Elias approached slowly, making himself visible. Unthreatening. An old man emerged from the largest tent. He was perhaps 60 with gray hair pulled back in a queue and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He held a rifle across his chest. Not aimed, just ready. I need help, Elias said. He spoke in halting Cantonese words Mei Ling had taught him during their quiet evenings by the fire. His pronunciation was terrible, but he tried. The old man's eyebrows rose in surprise. A white man speaking their language, however poorly, was unexpected. You speak our tongue, the old man said in accented English. Badly, but I tried to. What do you want, white man? There is a woman, Chinese, and a child. Men are coming to kill them. Bad men. I cannot stop them alone. The old man's expression hardened. Why should we care about your problems? Because the woman is one of yours, because the men hunting her are the same kind who worked your people to death on the railroad and left you here to starve. Because if you do not help, an innocent child will die. Other miners had gathered now, a dozen men watching with suspicious eyes. They had learned not to trust white men bearing requests. The old man studied Elias for a long moment, taking in the blood on his coat, the desperate exhaustion in his face, the way he swayed on his wounded leg. What is your plan? Elias explained. About the cabin, about Dutch Carver and his men, about the weak point on the ridge where snow had been accumulating all winter. If we could set charges, time them right, we could trigger an avalanche when they attack, bury them, give the woman and child time to escape. You want us to kill for you. I want to give them a chance to live. The old man turned and spoke rapid Cantonese to the assembled miners. A debate erupted. Voices rose and fell. Arguments were made. Elias understood perhaps one word in 10, but he grasped the essence. They did not trust him, but they also knew what it meant to be hunted. Finally, the old man raised his hand. Silence fell. He turned back to Elias. We have dynamite from the mining. We know how to use it. He paused. We will help. But if this goes wrong, if our people die because of your plan, you will answer for it. If it goes wrong, I will already be dead. The old man's lips twitched, almost a smile. What is your name? Elias Crane. I am Zhang Wei. We will need 2 days to position the charges correctly. Can you give us 2 days? I will try. They shook hands. Zhang's grip was strong despite his age. The woman, Zhang said quietly. What is she to you? Elias considered the question. Someone who deserves better than this world has given her. Zhang nodded. He understood that sentiment perfectly. Elias made the long walk back to the shack. His leg was on fire, his vision blurred with exhaustion. But when he finally pushed through the door, Mei Ling met him with eyes red from crying. "I heard shots," she said. "Dutch's men found me." "Did you?" "Yes." She looked at the bag of medicine in his hands, at the blood on his coat, at the haunted look in his eyes. At Lily, who had followed him back, her face pale and drawn. "Come inside," she said gently. Lily was awake. Barely. Elias prepared the medicine exactly as Sullivan had instructed. They got it down her throat, spoonful by spoonful. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Elias sat against the wall staring at nothing. Mei Ling came to sit beside him. "You killed for us," she said. "Yes." "How do you feel?" "Like I am back where I started, covered in blood, no closer to redemption." "Redemption is a myth," Mei Ling said. "There is only the next choice, and the one after that." "I chose to kill. You chose to save a child. The killing was just the price." Elias looked at her. "Does that make it right?" "No, but it makes it understandable, and sometimes that is the best we can hope for." They sat in silence as the sun rose. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Soon their tracks would be covered. Soon Dutch would find them anyway. But for this moment, three people in a broken shack, all holding on to each other against a world that wanted them dead. And for this moment, that was enough. 2 days after Elias returned with the medicine, Lily's fever broke. Mei Ling wept when she felt the child's forehead cool beneath her palm. Quiet tears of relief that she did not try to hide. Elias stood by the door watching, feeling something tight and painful in his chest loosen just enough to let him breathe. But the relief was temporary. They all knew it. Lily was weak, too weak to travel, too weak to run if Dutch came. And the medicine Sullivan had provided would only last another 3 days at most. "We need to move," Elias said on the morning of the third day. "Get you both somewhere safe." Mei Ling looked up from where she sat beside Lily. The girl was sleeping, her breathing steady but shallow. "Where is safe?" "North, across the border into Canada. There are Chinese communities there, railroad workers who settled after the tracks were finished. They would take you in. And you? I would get you there. Then I would come back." "To face Dutch alone." "Yes," Mei Ling stood. She moved to stand in front of Elias, her small frame rigid with determination. "No, it is not your choice. It is exactly my choice. You think I will run while you die for me. You think that is what I want. What you want does not matter. Lily needs to live, and she needs you." The words came out fierce, desperate. "She asks about you when you are gone. She watches the door waiting for you to come back. You are not just the man who saved us. You are becoming her family." Elias turned away. He could not look at her when she said things like that. Could not bear the weight of being needed. "I am not fit to be anyone's family," he said. "Neither am I, but we are what she has." Before Elias could respond, they heard it, the sound that turned his blood to ice. Voices, multiple, coming up the trail toward the shack. Elias moved instantly. He grabbed his rifle, checked the load, positioned himself by the window. Mei Ling scooped Lily into her arms and crouched behind the overturned table. The voices grew louder, closer, and then they stopped. Silence. Elias counted heartbeats. 10, 20, 30. Then Dutch Carver's voice rang out across the clearing. "Crane, I know you are in there, and I know you are thinking about doing something stupid. So let me save you the trouble." Elias said nothing. His finger rested on the trigger, waiting. "I have 6 men with me," Dutch continued. "All armed, all prepared to burn that shack down around your ears if necessary. But I am a reasonable man, so I am going to give you one last chance." Still silence from inside. "Send out the woman and the child. You walk away. I give you my word as a fellow soldier that I will let you go." Elias almost laughed. Dutch's word was worth less than spit. "You have until I count to 10. Then we start shooting. 1. Mei Ling looked at Elias. Her eyes asked a question. "What do we do, 2? Elias made a decision. He moved to the back of the shack, where a loose board allowed a view of the forest behind them. 3. Empty. Dutch had not surrounded them. He was arrogant enough to believe they would not run. 4. Elias turned to Mei Ling. "When I start shooting, you take Lily and run. Due north. Do not stop. Do not look back. I cannot leave you." 5. "You can, you will, for her." 6. Mei Ling's face crumpled, but she nodded. 7. Elias positioned himself at the front window, counted the shapes he could see through the shutters. 6, just like Dutch said. They were spread out, good cover, bad angles for him. 8, he would get maybe 2 shots before they rushed him. 3 if he was lucky. It would not be enough. 9. Elias raised his rifle. 10. Then everything happened at once. Elias fired. His first shot took a man in the shoulder, spinning him around. His second shot missed as the target scattered for cover. Return fire erupted. Bullets punched through the thin walls of the shack, filling the air with splinters and dust. Mei Ling ran for the back wall, Lily clutched to her chest. Elias fired again. Again, providing cover. Then he heard Mei Ling scream. He spun. A man had burst through the back wall, grabbing Mei Ling before she could escape. The man was huge-bearded, with a knife in his free hand. Elias could not shoot. The angle was wrong. He would hit Mei Ling. The man dragged Mei Ling backward. She fought, kicked, scratched. But he was too strong. Lily tumbled from her arms, hitting the ground hard. Elias moved, dropped his rifle, and pulled his knife. He crossed the distance in 3 strides and drove the blade into the man's kidney. The man roared, released Mei Ling, turned with the knife still in him. They grappled. Elias was taller, but the man was heavier. They crashed into the wall. The impact drove the air from Elias's lungs. The man's hands found Elias's throat. Squeezed. Elias could not breathe, could not think. His vision began to tunnel. Then Mei Ling was there. She had picked up Elias's rifle. She swung it like a club. The stock connected with the man's skull with a sound like a melon splitting. The man dropped. Elias gasped for air. His throat burned, but he was alive. "Thank you," he managed. Mei Ling did not answer. She was staring at the door. Dutch Carver stood framed in the opening, gun drawn, pointed directly at them. "Well," Dutch said, "this is disappointing. I really hoped you would run Crane. Would have made things more interesting." Behind him, his remaining men filed in. 5 of them. Too many. "On your knees," Dutch ordered. Elias did not move. Dutch shot him. The bullet took Elias in the thigh. He went down hard, white-hot pain exploding through his leg. Blood soaked his pants instantly. Mei Ling screamed. Lily was crying. The sound filled the shack like breaking glass. "I said on your knees," Dutch repeated. "Both of you." Mei Ling knelt. She pulled Lily close, shielding the girl with her body. Dutch walked forward slowly, savoring the moment. "You know what the funny thing is, Crane? I did not even care about the bounty. $500, that is nothing." He crouched in front of Elias, close enough that Elias could smell the whiskey on his breath. "I came for you, to finish what we started at Sand Creek." "Sand Creek is over," Elias said through gritted teeth. "No, it is not. You made it not over when you ran, when you testified against Colonel Chivington, when you made the rest of us look like monsters. You were monsters." Dutch hit him, the gun barrel across his face. Elias tasted blood. "We were soldiers, following orders. But you could not accept that. You had to be the hero, had to have a conscience." Dutch stood. He turned his attention to Mei Ling. "And you, a Chinese whore who killed her employer. You really thought you could hide up here?" Mei Ling lifted her chin. "He was going to erase his daughter, make her ashamed of what she is. And that gave you the right to kill him?" "It gave me the right to protect her." Dutch laughed. "Protect her? You mean kidnap her. That is what the law calls it. The law has never protected us." "No, I suppose it has not." Dutch pressed his gun to Mei Ling's forehead. "So let me ask you something. Was it worth it, killing that man running? Getting all these people killed?" Mei Ling did not flinch. "Yes. Even knowing you will hang?" "Even then." Dutch's finger tightened on the trigger. "Wait," Elias said. Dutch paused, looked back at him. "You want the truth about Sand Creek? I will give it to you. But let them go first." "No deal." "Then shoot me and never know." Dutch considered. Then he lowered the gun. "Talk." Elias looked at Mei Ling, tried to convey everything he could not say. Then he spoke. "There was no order to fire on that village. Chivington gave it, but it was not sanctioned. We were supposed to be on a scouting mission. Nothing more." "Lies." "No, truth. The investigation proved it. Chivington was acting on his own authority. He wanted a victory before his commission expired. Wanted glory. So he manufactured an enemy where there was none. Those savages killed settlers. Those people were camped under a white flag of truce. They had been promised safety by the government, and we slaughtered them." Dutch's face twisted. "They were animals. They were human beings, and we murdered them. You are the traitor I always knew you were." "Yes," Elias said. "I am a traitor to men like you, and I would do it again." Dutch raised his gun, this time pointing it at Elias's head. "Any last words?" Elias looked at Lily. The child was watching him with huge, terrified eyes. He tried to smile, to be brave for her one last time. Live, he said to her. Live and remember. Dutch pulled the trigger. The click of the hammer on an empty chamber was the loudest sound Elias had ever heard. Dutch stared at his gun in confusion. He had not been counting rounds, had fired too many times. Elias moved. Despite the wound in his thigh, despite the pain, despite everything, he lunged. His hands closed around Dutch's throat. They went down together. Rolling, fighting, two old soldiers trying to kill each other with nothing but bare hands and hate. Dutch was stronger, less injured. He got on top. His hands found Elias's throat. Should have died at Sand Creek, Dutch hissed. Elias could not breathe, could not fight back. His vision darkened. Then the world exploded. Not metaphorically, literally. The entire mountainside shook. A sound like God's own thunder rolled across the valley. And through the window, Elias saw it. An avalanche, but not a natural one. Someone had set off explosives on the ridge, deliberately, and the entire snowpack was collapsing down toward them. Dutch heard it too. His grip loosened. He turned to look. What the? The wall of white hit the shack like a freight train. Everything went dark. Elias felt himself lifted, thrown, tumbling through a chaos of snow and debris and splintering wood. He tried to hold his breath, tried to swim through the crushing weight, but there was no up, no down, just cold and darkness and the certain knowledge that he was about to die. Then impact. Hard, final, and everything stopped. Elias woke to silence, complete, total, suffocating silence. He was buried. He knew that immediately. The weight on his chest made breathing nearly impossible. He could not see, could not move his arms or legs. Panic clawed at him, but panic used oxygen, and oxygen was in very short supply. He forced himself to stay calm, to think. His right hand, he could move it slightly, just enough to create a small pocket near his face. He pushed, slowly, carefully. Snow compacted easily, but also collapsed just as easily. One wrong move and he would bury himself deeper. Minutes passed, hours maybe. Time had no meaning in the dark. Then his fingers broke through. Fresh air touched his hand. With renewed desperation, Elias dug. He widened the hole, pulled himself toward it, inch by agonizing inch. Finally, his head emerged. He gasped, sucked in air that burned his lungs, blinked against the sudden brightness. The world had been transformed. Where the shack had stood, there was now only a field of broken trees and churned snow. The avalanche had carved a path 50 yards wide down the mountain. Everything in its way was simply gone. Elias pulled himself free. His legs screamed in protest. The bullet wound had not stopped bleeding, but he was alive. Mei Ling, he shouted. His voice was raw, weak. Lily. No answer. He stumbled through the debris field, searching, calling, growing more desperate with each passing moment. He found Dutch Carver 20 yards from where the shack had been. The man was dead. A tree branch had impaled him through the chest. His eyes stared sightlessly at the sky. Elias felt nothing looking at the corpse. No satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness. He kept searching. He found one of Dutch's men, dead, then another, also dead, but no Mei Ling, no Lily. Please, Elias whispered, to the mountain, to anyone who might be listening. Please. Then he heard it, a sound so faint he almost missed it. Crying. He followed the sound, dug through a drift, and found her. Lily. The girl was trapped beneath a fallen beam but alive, conscious, crying for Mei Ling. Elias lifted the beam, pulled Lily free, checked her for injuries. Miraculously, she seemed unhurt, except for bruises. Where is Auntie May? Lily asked through tears. I do not know, little one, but we will find her. As darkness approached, figures emerged from the tree line. Chinese men, Zhang Wei's miners carrying shovels, and the scent of black powder still clinging to their clothes. Zhang approached Elias where he knelt in the snow, still searching. The old man's face was grave. We found 3 bodies. Dutch's men. He paused, and we found her. Elias's heart stopped. Mei Ling. Alive. Barely. Zhang gestured and several miners came forward, carrying a makeshift stretcher. On it lay Mei Ling wrapped in blankets, her face pale as the snow around them. Elias stumbled to the stretcher. His wounded leg nearly gave out, but he did not care. He reached out with trembling hands and touched Mei Ling's cheek. Cold, but not the cold of death. Auntie May, Lily cried, pushing past Elias to grab Mei Ling's hand. Please wake up, please. Mei Ling did not respond. Her breathing was shallow, labored. Blood seeped through the blankets at her side. She was pinned under a beam, Zhang said quietly, 200 yards from here. We dug for an hour before we could pull her free. Broken ribs, head injury, internal bleeding maybe. She needs a doctor, Elias said. Real medicine. Town is dangerous. They will ask questions. I do not care. Let them ask. Elias tried to stand, nearly fell. Zhang caught him. You are in no condition to walk. Then I will crawl. Zhang studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. We will take you both, but we do it carefully. No more deaths today. Two miners fashioned a second stretcher from pine branches and a torn coat. They lifted Elias onto it, despite his protests. He was too weak to resist. The group began the long descent. Two stretchers carried side by side through the darkening forest. Lily walked between them, one small hand on each stretcher, her face set with fierce determination, refusing to let either of them go. Above them, the mountain groaned. Snow shifted on the higher peaks. But it held. For now, Dr. Sullivan was waiting when they arrived. Someone had ridden ahead with news of the avalanche. He took one look at Elias's leg and shook his head. You are lucky you still have it. Another hour and gangrene would have set in. He worked through the night, extracting the bullet, cleaning the wound, stitching, bandaging. In the next room, Sullivan's assistant worked on Mei Ling. The sound of urgent voices carried through the walls, medical terms Elias did not understand. The clink of instruments, water being poured. When Sullivan finished with Elias's leg, he looked grim. The woman, Mei Ling, she has severe head trauma, 3 broken ribs. Internal bleeding that we have stabilized, but, he paused, even if her body heals, her mind may not. Head injuries are unpredictable. Will she live? I do not know. The next 48 hours will tell. Elias nodded. It was better than the alternative, better than thinking she was buried forever under the snow. Lily sat in a corner wrapped in blankets, watching everything with empty eyes. When Sullivan finished, he pulled Elias aside. The avalanche. They are saying it was deliberate, that someone set charges. Yes. Who? Elias met the doctor's eyes. I did. I asked the miners to set charges, to save her. It went wrong. Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. That is not what you should tell the sheriff. I will not lie about this. Then you will hang. Perhaps, but I will not let her be blamed for something I did. 3 days later, the sheriff came. He listened to Elias's story, took notes, asked questions. Then he closed his notebook. The miners confirmed your account. They say you paid them to set charges, that you were trying to save the woman and child from Dutch's mob. Yes. Dutch Carver was wanted in 3 territories for murder and theft. His men were all criminals. The Chinese woman was accused of a crime that the evidence is not clear on. And you have a pardon from the army. The sheriff stood. Far as I am concerned, this was a mining accident. Tragic, but an accident. You are free to go. Elias stared. You are not arresting me. For what? Saving a child from a mob. This is Montana territory. We do not arrest men for that. After the sheriff left, Sullivan brought Lily to Elias's bedside. She needs to stay somewhere, Sullivan said. I spoke to the territorial authorities. Given what happened to her father and her situation, they are willing to place her with a guardian, if one can be found. Elias looked at the girl. She looked back at him with eyes that held too much knowledge for 8 years. I will take her, he said. Me. You are in no condition to care for a child. I will heal, and I owe her this much. Sullivan studied him, then nodded. I will make the arrangements. 6 months later, the town of Coeur d'Alene in Idaho Territory was smaller than Silver Pine, quieter. The kind of place where a man could start over if he was willing to work for it. Elias Crane worked. He apprenticed with the local blacksmith, learned to shape metal, to create instead of destroy. Lily went to school. She was behind the other children in English, but she learned fast. The teacher said she was bright, capable. They lived in a small house on the edge of town. 2 rooms, a garden, a chicken coop. It was not much, but it was more than Elias had allowed himself in 19 years. He still carried the turquoise necklace, still thought about Sand Creek. But the weight was different now, less crushing, more like something he could learn to carry without it breaking him. Lily called him Uncle Elias. She did not call him father. That word belonged to Henry Chen despite everything, but uncle was enough. On spring evenings, they sat on the porch and watched the sunset behind the mountains. Do you think she is out there somewhere? Lily asked one evening. She did not need to say who she meant. I do not know, Elias said honestly. I hope she is. I hope she knows we are okay. If she is alive, she knows. Mei Ling was many things, but she always knew how to survive. They sat in comfortable silence. Two people building a life from ruins. Then Lily pointed. Someone is coming. Elias looked. A figure was walking up the road toward their house. Small, slight, moving with a limp. As the figure drew closer, Elias's heart began to race. It could not be. But it was. Mei Ling. She was thinner than he remembered. Her hair had been cut short. She walked with a cane. But it was unmistakably her. Lily saw her and screamed, a sound of pure joy. She leaped from the porch and ran. Mei Ling dropped her cane and caught the girl. They fell together into the grass, holding each other, crying. Elias stood slowly. His legs still pained him in cold weather. He walked down the steps and across the yard. Mei Ling looked up at him. Her face was streaked with tears. I am sorry, she said. I am so sorry. I wanted to come sooner, but I could not remember. The avalanche. It took my memory. For months I did not know who I was. Elias knelt beside them. Jiang Wei's people said they pulled you from the snow, that they took you to their camp. They did. They saved my life. But when I woke, everything was blank. I knew my name was Mei Ling, but I could not remember why I was there. Could not remember Henry, or Lily, or you. Her voice broke. They told me I had a child, that I was running from men who wanted to kill me. But it was like hearing a story about someone else. I felt nothing. How did you remember? Slowly, a face here, a name there. 3 months ago, I remembered Lily's laugh. Last month, I remembered your cabin, your fire, the way you sat so still and watched the flames. She reached up and touched his scarred jaw. 2 weeks ago, I remembered everything, and I have been walking ever since, trying to find you, hoping you would still want me after I abandoned you. You did not abandon us. You were hurt. You were lost. I thought Lily would be better without me, that you could give her a life I never could. Elias took Mei Ling's hand. She needs you. We both do. I killed a man. I am a wanted woman. The charges were dropped. Henry Chen's death was ruled an accident, and Mei Ling died in an avalanche, officially. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You gave me a new start. We all got new starts. The question is what we do with them. Mei Ling looked at Lily, at Elias, at the small house with its garden and chickens and promise of ordinary life. I do not know how to be ordinary, she whispered. Neither do I, Elias said, but we can learn together. Lily pulled them both to their feet. Come inside, I want to show you my room and the garden, and Uncle Elias taught me to make bread. She chattered as she pulled them toward the house, filling the silence with the sound of a child who had finally found safety. Elias and Mei Ling followed. Their hands found each other. Tentative, uncertain, but holding on. Inside the house, Mei Ling paused. She looked around at the simple furnishings. The table set for two that would now need to be three. The life that Elias had built while waiting for her. Oh, this is beautiful, she said. It is a start. Will the town accept me when they learn I am Chinese? Some will not. But we will face it together. Mei Ling nodded. She reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. The journal she had carried from the beginning. I wrote everything down. While I could not remember, I wrote what I was told. About Henry, about you, about the avalanche. I thought if I wrote it, maybe it would come back. Did it? Pieces, fragments. The big parts came back 2 months ago. Your name, Lily's face, the cabin. She opened the journal. Inside, in careful Chinese characters mixed with halting English, was their story. I was afraid, Mei Ling said, that if I came back, I would ruin what you had built, that Lily would be angry, that you would not want me. We have been waiting, Elias said, every day, hoping. I am not the same person who left. The avalanche changed me. I am weaker now, slower. I am not the same person who pulled that trigger at Sand Creek. We are all broken and remade. Lily tugged on Mei Ling's sleeve. Are you staying? Please say you are staying. Mei Ling knelt. She cupped Lily's face in her hands. If you will have me, if Uncle Elias will have me, then yes, I am staying. Forever, forever. They ate dinner together that night. Simple food, bread and stew, but it tasted like the finest meal any of them had ever eaten. After Lily went to bed, Elias and Mei Ling sat on the porch. The stars were bright overhead, the mountains distant shadows against the sky. I still see their faces, Mei Ling said quietly. The men who died in that avalanche, even Dutch, even though he would have killed us. I know. I see the faces from Sand Creek. I think we always will. Does it get easier? No, but we learn to carry it better. Mei Ling leaned against him, just slightly, testing the boundaries of this new relationship they were building. Elias put his arm around her, also tentative, also uncertain. The miners who helped us, Mei Ling said, the ones who set the charges, did they face any trouble? No, the sheriff ruled it a mining accident, and the Chinese community closed ranks. No one talked. They saved us. Yes, and I made them a promise that when we were settled, we would help others like us, people running, people who need shelter. That is dangerous. Yes, but necessary. Mei Ling smiled. Then we do it together. The promise settled between them, quiet and unshakable. Inside, they could hear Lily singing softly to herself. The lullaby Mei Ling had taught her, about crossing water you cannot cross back. But the words no longer felt like loss. They felt like transformation. They had crossed the water, had left behind the people they were, and on this far shore they were building something new. Not perfect, never perfect. There would be hard days, days when the town's prejudice cut deep, days when memories were too heavy to bear, days when they wondered if they had made the right choices. But they would face those days together. Do you think she will ever tell me, Mei Ling asked quietly, about what really happened with Henry? Elias looked at her, surprised. You know, a mother knows, even when she is not the mother. Mei Ling's voice was soft, sad. The way she looks at knives, the way she flinches when someone mentions his name. She carries it like you carry Sand Creek. She thinks she is protecting you by letting you take the blame. And I would take it 1,000 times over. Mei Ling's hand tightened in his. She was 8 years old, protecting me. What else could she have done? The same thing you did, the same thing I did, exactly what the moment demanded. They sat in the darkness, not two people who had killed, not three broken souls, just a family, imperfect, scarred, but whole in the ways that mattered. The mountains loomed in the distance, silent, eternal, holding their secrets. Elias no longer feared them, no longer saw them as judges. They were simply mountains, and he was simply a man. Mei Ling was simply a woman. Lily was simply a child, all of them flawed, all of them carrying weight, but all of them choosing every single day to build something better from the ruins. Inside, Lily's song faded, replaced by the soft sounds of sleep. The sleep of a child who had finally found safety, who could dream without nightmares. Outside under the stars, Elias and Mei Ling kept their vigil, watching, waiting, ready for whatever came next. Together, they had found each other in the snow, had survived when survival seemed impossible, had chosen again and again to keep living even when death would have been easier. The weight of snow had nearly crushed them, but they had emerged from the avalanche transformed, not pure, not innocent, but alive and together, and that was more than enough. It was everything.